You're driving home from the range. Blue lights flash behind you. You pull over. The officer walks up, asks for your license and registration, and then looks you in the eye and says, "Do you have any guns in the vehicle?" Your heart starts pounding. You know you're legal. You have your permit. The firearm is secured exactly how it should be. But right now, in this moment, what you say in the next 10 seconds could be the difference between driving away in 5 minutes or spending the next 3 hours on the side of the road in handcuffs while they tear your vehicle apart. Maybe worse. Maybe you say the wrong thing. They perceive a threat, and now you're looking at charges you never saw coming. This is the single most high-risk question a gun owner faces during a traffic stop, and most people get it completely wrong. Here's what you need to understand. When that officer asks if you have any guns, he's not just making conversation. He's assessing threat level. He's deciding right now whether you're cooperative, whether you're hiding something, whether he needs to call backup. And here's the thing. If you freeze up, if you stumble over your words, if you start volunteering information trying to prove you're one of the good guys, you can turn a simple traffic stop into a felony investigation in about 30 seconds. I've seen it happen. Good people, legal carriers, no criminal record, and they talk themselves right into a nightmare because they didn't know what to say. So let me give you the exact line you need. When a police officer asks, "Do you have any guns in the vehicle?" You look at him calmly. You keep your hands visible, and you say this: "I'm not discussing firearms without my attorney present." 9 words. That's it. Let me say it again. "I'm not discussing firearms without my attorney present." You don't smile. You don't apologize. You don't explain. You say those 9 words in a calm, respectful tone, and then you stop talking. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, wait, I'm legal. I've got nothing to hide. Why would I refuse to answer? Won't that make things worse? No, and I'm going to explain exactly why in a minute. But first, let me give you 2 backup variations of this line for slightly different situations. If the officer asks, "Are you carrying a weapon right now?" you can say, "I respectfully decline to answer without legal counsel." That's another option. Or if he says, "I need to know if there are any firearms in this car," you can respond with, "I'm invoking my right to remain silent on that question." Same principle, same protection, slightly different words depending on how the question comes at you. Here's why these lines work. You have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination. That means you do not have to answer questions that could be used against you, even if you've done nothing wrong. And you have a Sixth Amendment right to an attorney. When you use one of these lines, you're not being difficult. You're not obstructing. You're exercising constitutional rights that exist specifically to protect you in moments like this. Now, some of you are asking, but don't I have a duty to inform in my state? Maybe. Some states require you to immediately inform an officer that you're carrying if you have a permit. But here's what most people miss. Duty to inform laws usually require you to show your permit and state that you are carrying. They do not require you to answer follow-up questions about where the gun is, what kind it is, how many guns you have, where you bought it, or anything else. The line I just gave you handles the follow-up questions. We'll get to duty to inform states in the scenarios. The danger most gun owners don't see is this. The second you start explaining, you're giving the officer information he can interpret however he wants. You say, "Yes, officer, I have a Glock 19 in the center console. It's unloaded. Magazine is separate. I'm a permit holder. Here's my permit. I was just at the range. I always follow the law." You think you're being helpful. You think you're proving you're responsible. But what the officer might hear is, "I have a loaded firearm within reach. I just admitted I was handling guns today, and now I'm talking too much, which makes me nervous, which makes me unpredictable." Or maybe he hears, "Center console. That's accessible from the driver's seat. This guy could reach for it." You just gave him reasonable suspicion to detain you, search the vehicle, and turn a traffic stop into an interrogation. And every single word you said can and will be written in a report and used in court if anything goes sideways. Let's walk through how this actually plays out. Scenario 1. You're driving through your hometown. You've lived here 20 years. You get pulled over for a broken taillight. Officer walks up. He's calm, polite, professional. He says, "Good evening. License and registration, please." You hand them over. He looks at your license, and then he says, "Sir, do you have any weapons in the vehicle?" You take a breath, hands on the steering wheel. You look at him and you say, "I'm not discussing firearms without my attorney present." He pauses. Maybe he looks a little surprised. Maybe he says, "Sir, I'm just asking for my safety. It's a simple question." You stay calm. You say, "I understand, officer. I'm not trying to be difficult. I'm just not answering questions about firearms without legal counsel." Now, most of the time, if you're polite, if your tone is respectful, if you're not acting suspicious, this officer is going to move on. He'll finish writing the ticket for the taillight, hand it to you, and send you on your way. Why? Because you didn't give him a reason to escalate. You didn't refuse to cooperate with the stop itself. You gave him your license. You were respectful. You You just decline to answer one specific question, which is your right. But let's say this officer is in a duty to inform state, and you do have a firearm on you. Here's how that changes. He asks for your license and registration. Before he even asks about guns, you hand him your documents and you say, "Officer, I'm a concealed carry permit holder, and I am currently armed." That's your duty to inform. You've met the legal requirement. Now he says, "Okay, where's the firearm?" And here's where you use the line. You say, "I've informed you as required by law. I'm not discussing any further details about firearms without my attorney present." You've done what the state law says you must do. You've told him you're armed. You've shown your permit. Everything after that is a question you don't have to answer. He might say, "I need to secure the weapon for the duration of the stop." That's different. If he's ordering you to step out of the vehicle so he can secure the firearm, that's a lawful order during a traffic stop in most states, and you should comply. But you still don't answer questions. You step out slowly, hands visible. You tell him, "I'm going to comply with your instructions," and you let him secure it. You do not start explaining where you were, why you have it, how long you've had your permit, none of that. You stay silent except to confirm you're following his orders. Let's move to scenario 2. Different situation. You're on a road trip, out of state, unfamiliar area. You get pulled over. Maybe you were going a little over the speed limit. This officer is not friendly. He walks up with an attitude. He asks for your license and registration, and when you hand it to him, he looks at your out-of-state plates and says, "You got any guns, knives, drugs, or anything else illegal in this vehicle?" His tone is accusatory. He's fishing. He's already assuming you might be up to something. You keep your voice steady. You say, "Officer, I'm not discussing firearms without my attorney present." He doesn't like that. He leans in a little. He says, "So that's a yes? You're telling me you have a gun in there?" This is the moment where most people panic and start backpedaling. Don't. You repeat the line. You say, "I'm invoking my right to remain silent on questions about firearms. I'm happy to cooperate with the traffic stop." Notice what you're doing. You're staying calm. You're not being hostile, but you're also not giving an inch. He might say, "If you've got nothing to hide, why won't you just answer the question?" And here's your response. "I respectfully decline to answer without legal counsel." Same line, same boundary. Now he's got a choice. He can write you the speeding ticket and let you go, or he can try to escalate. If he says, "Step out of the vehicle," you comply. If he says, "I'm going to search your car," you say, "I do not consent to any searches," but you don't physically resist. You let him do what he's going to do, but you make it clear you're not giving permission, and you stay silent. If he keeps asking questions, you repeat, "I'm not answering questions without my attorney." Here's the reality. In this scenario, he might search your car anyway. He might claim he smells something, or he sees something in plain view, or he's got some other justification. If that happens, you let him search. You don't argue on the side of the road. But because you didn't answer his questions, because you didn't volunteer information, you didn't give him any statements he can use to justify the search later or to build a case if he finds something he claims is illegal. Every word you don't say is a word that can't be twisted in a police report or a courtroom. And if you are carrying legally, if everything is in order, then even if he searches and finds your firearm, you haven't made any statements he can misinterpret. You've protected yourself. Now let's go to scenario 3. Worst case, you're driving late at night. You've got a buddy in the passenger seat. You get pulled over. 2 officers approach, one on each side of the vehicle. The officer on your side says, "License and registration." You hand it over. The officer on the passenger side is shining a flashlight in, looking around. The first officer says, "Do you or your passenger have any firearms in this vehicle?" Now it's more complicated, because maybe your passenger does have a gun. Maybe it's his gun, not yours. Maybe you don't even know if he's carrying. Here's what you do. You look at the officer and you say, "I'm not discussing firearms without my attorney present." Your passenger needs to make his own decision, but you've protected yourself. If the officer then turns to your passenger and asks him directly, your passenger can use the same line, or if he's carrying and it's a duty to inform state, he needs to inform. But you don't speak for him. You don't say, "Well, he might have one, but I'm not sure," because now you've opened the door. You've created ambiguity. You've given them a reason to detain both of you while they figure it out. Stay silent. Let your passenger answer or not answer for himself. The officer might not like this. He might say, "You two are being awfully uncooperative. Makes me think you're hiding something." You don't take the bait. You say, "Officer, we're cooperating with the traffic stop. We're just not answering questions about firearms without legal representation." If he orders you both out of the vehicle, you comply. Hands visible, slow movements, calm tone. If he separates you and tries to question you individually, you stick to the script. "I'm not discussing firearms without my attorney present." Do not let him play you against your passenger. Do not let him tell you, "Well, your buddy already told me you've got a gun in the car." so you might as well come clean. That's an interrogation tactic. It might be true. It might be a complete lie. Either way, your answer is the same. Silence. Now let's talk about the lines that will destroy you. These are the things I hear gun owners say all the time, and every single one of them is a trap. First one, yes, officer, I have a gun, but I have a permit, so it's all legal. You just admitted possession. You just told them where your focus is. And if there's any technicality, any little thing wrong with how that gun is stored or transported, or if your permit has some issue you're not aware of, you just handed him everything he needs. Second line, I have a gun in the glove box, but it's not loaded. Now you've told him exactly where it is. You've told him it's separated from ammunition, which might or might not be the legal requirement, depending on where you are. And if he finds out you were wrong, if there's a round in the chamber you forgot about, or a magazine nearby, you just lied to a police officer. That's a separate crime. Third mistake, I was just at the range, so yeah, I've got a couple guns in the trunk. Congratulations, you just told him you have multiple firearms, and you've been actively shooting today. He's now thinking about whether you're stable, whether you've been drinking, whether those guns are secured properly. You gave him reasons to dig deeper. And fourth mistake, the one that kills people in court. It's not my gun. It belongs to my friend. I'm just giving him a ride. Now you're involved in a potential illegal transfer or straw purchase investigation, even if everything was completely innocent. You just created a legal nightmare with one sentence trying to be helpful. Every one of those lines comes from the same place. You're trying to prove you're not a threat. You're trying to show the officer you're one of the good guys. And I get it. Most of us were raised to respect law enforcement, to cooperate, to be honest. But here's the hard truth. That officer doesn't know you. He doesn't know if you're a good guy or not. His job is to investigate, to find violations, to protect himself. And in that moment, anything you say is going to be filtered through his training, his experience, his biases, and his perception of threat. You can't control how he interprets your words, but you can control whether you give him those words in the first place. Silence protects you. The script line protects you. Explaining yourself does not. So let's bring this home. When a police officer asks if you have any guns in the vehicle, you say, I'm not discussing firearms without my attorney present. If you're in a duty to inform state and you're actively carrying, you inform as required by law, then you use the script for any follow-up questions. If the officer is polite and professional, you stay polite and professional. If the officer is hostile and pushy, you stay calm and repeat the line. If it's a complex situation with multiple officers or passengers, you protect yourself with silence and let each person handle their own answers. You do not volunteer information. You do not try to explain. You do not assume that being helpful will make this go faster or smoother. It won't. It will only give them more to work with. Now, I need to be very clear about something. What I've given you here is general education about your constitutional rights and how to protect yourself during a police encounter involving firearms. This is not personal legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. Laws vary widely by state. Duty to inform requirements are different depending on where you are. Some states have specific rules about transporting firearms, storing firearms in vehicles, carrying with a permit or without. What's legal in one state might be a felony in another. And laws change. Court rulings change. What I'm telling you today is based on constitutional principles that apply across the country. But your specific situation, your state, your circumstances, those need to be reviewed by a qualified attorney in your area who knows the current laws where you live. If you've been stopped, if you've been charged with anything, if you're facing a legal issue involving firearms, you need to talk to a real lawyer immediately. Don't rely on a YouTube video. Get actual legal representation. That said, the script I've given you is designed to protect your constitutional rights in the moment. It's not about being anti-police. It's not about being uncooperative. It's about understanding that you have rights, and those rights exist because even innocent people can get hurt when they say the wrong thing under pressure. So use the script. Practice it. Know it cold. Because the next time you see those blue lights and the officer asks about guns, you're not going to have time to think. You need to know exactly what to say. And here's the thing. This video covered what to say when the officer asks if you have guns. But what if he doesn't ask? What if he just orders you out of the vehicle and says he's going to search? That's a completely different situation with a different script. Or what if you're open carrying and he approaches you on the street, not during a traffic stop? Different rules, different lines. I'll cover those situations in future videos. But for now, lock this one in. I'm not discussing firearms without my attorney present. 9 words that could save your freedom.